Well, hello everyone and welcome. We're so glad you've joined us for this conversation today, Money and Spirituality, a conversation from the heart. And whether you're joining the live or catching the recording, we thank you for being here. Some of you, I think many of you know me already, but my name is Karen McAllister and I'm a meditation teacher based at Clear Sky Meditation Center in British Columbia. Doug Duncan or Capel, who recently passed away. It's his center with Catherine Pawasarat Sensei, who founded the center and I'm one of the co-founding members. And I'm also a money coach. So I've spent the last 2 decades helping individuals and communities transform their relationship with money, not as a problem to fix, but as a profound path of awakening. So I'll hand it over to you, Lisa.
Thanks. Happy to be here with you. My name is Lisa Cowan. I think maybe a lot of people on the call will know each other, but I'm also a meditation teacher in the Namgyal lineage, a lifelong student of Namgyal Rinpoche. And I've been working a lot these days, actually, for a long time, using art and symbolism and meditation together for awakening in a retreat context and in my professional context. Um, and this topic is close to my heart because I'm a working mom and have really put a lot of work in this life into balancing real life in modern society with the path. So just moving into what we're up to today, we're not really here to give a presentation or a pitch, but just to have like an honest and interesting chat about what we're on about with money and spirituality and where we might be going with our retreat later this summer, which is called Money as a Spiritual Practice. So we wanted to let you into that a little bit, open up some of the questions that we think are really interesting around this topic. Get in a little bit into our inherited money stories, our spiritual values, and the creative ways we can move from fear and paralysis into freedom and liberation.
Great.
Karen?
Yeah, thanks, Lisa. So you'll hear us interview one another, two Dharma practitioners from the same lineage. We're excited about that, Lisa being from the DCC and I'm from Clear Sky. So walking different paths, but united in our wish to bring more truth and more compassion and wholeness into the way we relate to money. And Lisa and I worked together for a while, for a bit around this topic called money. So and we had such a great time together that we had this idea to actually collaborate and do something around money and art and money and therapy. So money and creative arts. So we'll also open a little space at the end for your reflections or questions. But for now, we just invite you to settle back, and maybe just take a few breaths. Yeah, let's do a minute or a mindful minute, as they call it today. So if you can make yourself comfortable in your seat and just set your intention for this hour. What are you wanting to get out of it? What's your intention from being here? And then just close your eyes and just take a few moments. Bring your mindful attention to your breath. And as you breathe in, just notice if the breath is long or short. And as you breathe out, again, notice if it's long or short. Just spend a few moments there focusing in on the breath. And when you're ready, move your fingers and your toes and gently come back to the room. Move your shoulders and I'll begin. So over to you, Lisa. Lisa's going to start us off with a few questions for me.
All right, so I'd love to ask you some questions, Karen. Firstly, you've been practicing and importantly teaching Dharma in the Namja lineage for a very long time. And you also work as a money coach. Uh, so I would love to ask you what brought you from Dharma into money psychology, and was there a turning point where this became the next right thing?
Okay, thanks, Lisa. I appreciate that question. My gosh, how long do you have? Um, so I'm one of the co-founding members of Clear Sky Meditation Center, and under the tutelage of Capel and Catherine Sensei. And I think we were about, I guess we bought the center in 2004, and around 2009, we came up against money issues. It felt like the actual center was full. We had retreats going on, but um, a lot of us didn't really know about money. We wanted to build a meditation center to meditate, to do long retreats and all of that, but you realize when you buy a 310-acre piece of land that you actually have to run it like a business in order to stay financially viable. And around 2009 we were like, but we're doing the Dharma, we're doing our practice, the money will just come, and the money didn't quite come. We had retreats, but we were actually running at a loss. And I think myself and the teachers were the only ones bringing in the money, and it was a lot of weight for us to carry. And I started noticing a lot of different patterns that people had as spiritual explorers around money. So, sticking their head in the sand, thinking that it will all work out because they're spiritual explorers and that they're, meditating. And there was a lot of issues around fear, and there was a lot of martyrdom in the center and so forth. And so I realized that if we continue this way, that we were actually going to go financially bankrupt. And so I wanted to find someone in the area that would help us with our patterns around money, and as a group. So I did find someone, and we brought her into the organization, and we worked as a group around our money issues, and we looked at our patterns and looked at our beliefs as a group, but individually and as a group. And we realized that we were not going to become financially viable in the near future if we continued with these certain mind states that we had. So yeah, due to doing the money psychology, we really um, turned the center around, and it's been in the black for at least 10 years now. So I'm happy to say that. And I realized that when people actually did their individual work with money, they tended to come from a much more confident place with their dharma and their ability to show up and manifest as a bodhisattva in the world. It just gave them that extra strength and confidence. Because money is money, sex, and power are the three taboo areas that people have challenges with in our lives, and that live beneath the heart chakra. So if we don't deal with them, then it's very hard to actually be of you're going to be of service anyway being a meditator, but you have more impact when you deal with those areas of money, sex, and power. And money's at the root chakra. So um, if we're not very stable in our foundation, it's hard to show up in a way that we can really be impactful with ourselves and others. So
Mm.
from there, I just started training as a money coach, and then people in community started to come to me and ask me to work with them. And yeah, I just love it. I think it's really incredible and quick way to turn around some of the unnecessary suffering that centers and individual people have in their lives around resources and abundance. Does that answer your question?
Yes, yeah, very much so. Thank you. Um, I also wanted to ask you, I've seen for myself, so I've done this work with you as a client, but I wanted to ask, so there are a lot of different approaches out there to sort of tackling this material. Um, and I think yours is different. It's really grounded in Dharma, and it's not New Age manifesting, and it's not traditional monastic style Buddha Dharma, and it's not fully secular financial coaching either. So
Mm.
I wonder if you could speak a little bit to that about what's unique about how you do what you do and what holds it together.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I always see money as a mirror. It's a mirror, it's an outer manifestation of an inner state or an inner pattern or behavior or view to life. So, in our culture, a lot of people have a very harsh relationship to money, and they are upset because they did what they shouldn't have done with money, or they should have done what they didn't with money, and so there's a lot of conflicting emotions, and it's also very secretive. So
Mm.
it's a cultural secret, it's a family secret. People are very guarded in their relationship with money and talking about money. So I like to bring the shadow out and to the table. So I like to see it from the family dynamic side and from the cultural side and from the intergenerational trauma side, because a lot of people have trauma around money actually. And so I like to approach money from an integral lens. I don't know if people are aware of Ken Wilber, and it's bringing um, bringing a lot of wisdom from developmental psychology, and bringing a lot of wisdom from Buddha Dharma, and it's bringing a lot of different lenses together in order to help the person become informed of the different facets and angles of their relationship with money, because a relationship with money is not just a relationship with the figures. It's a relationship to giving, it's a relationship to receiving, it's a relationship to saving, it's a relationship to investing. So there's a lot of dynamics of how we navigate our life through these different modes. And so money is not just about the numbers. So I really work from that point of view. So I think that's probably different to secular money coaching or to old school Dharma renunciation type approach.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think, speaking to my experience of working with you also, I really felt that it wasn't okay, let's get together and do this really deep work on my money psychology so that I can manifest more money. It was really deep work on money psychology I found that was the same as other deep meditative work, like really getting into patterns of suffering. Hey,
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
Um,
appreciated
yeah,
that.
yeah. It's really about, because I mean we're trained in the consumer culture, we're fed on greed, right? And so really money coaching, or the way I teach it anyway, is how do we disentangle um our contracted states around money, or states of I won't have enough, or I am not enough, or
Mm.
and that's why we called it scarcity, healing the scarcity states within our beings, so that we can be freed up to work with the heart more. And we use archetypes, which is great, and we will be talking a little bit more about that later on.
So good. Um, on the topic of scarcity, I wanted to ask you, we've had some interesting conversations about um, working with undoing those patterns around scarcity, as I think you used the phrase earth medicine, which I found really compelling and mysterious. And I wanted to ask you if you could say more about that. How does this money psychology dharma work come back around to stewardship of the planet and sustainability?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so we live in an extractive culture, as we all know. It's all about what can I get rather than what can I give back, and it's just the training in our consumer world. And so the consumptive culture is based on the scarcity mentality. There's not enough, so we're all trying to protect me and mine and gather as much as we can, even if that is in spiritual courses that one will do. So by dealing with that non-enoughness in that being, or that chronic sense of non-enoughness that we as Westerners have in our psyche, we're then be able to, save and spend and earn and invest from a place of I am enough, from a place of there's nothing wrong with me, from a place of you know, uh, people always say, well, as meditators, we're talking about non-self, right? But, and people say, oh, I want to have lots of, to welcome stuff into my life. But if we look at where we are, where we are in our stage of development with money, it's usually at a very low stage of not enoughness, right? So as you go and develop through your relationship with money, you come to a place enoughness where then a lot of your decision making around money or a decision making full stop in your life is coming from a place of confidence and not extraction. So then you're going to make different choices and have a lighter footprint on the earth as a result because of that wonderful mindful awareness and attention um, to healing scarcity within your being. Does that make sense? Or
Makes
yeah,
sense to me. Yeah, thank you.
great. You're welcome. Well, I'm going to stop talking and ask you a few questions if that's okay. So, you've walked a deep path as a long-term Dharma meditation teacher and a creative, as a product designer and mother. So, like, why is this course on money and scarcity something you feel called to co-lead with me, you know? So why this, why now, I guess is my question.
Mm. Well, I mean, as you know, we were inspired to lead this course together after doing quite a bit of work together, where I started out as a client. We had previously been Dharma colleagues and community members together. But so I sort of went through an arc with this where I think for me, I feel that it's a very, on a personal and a collective level, a very powerful cutting edge right now. So in the global context, this stuff about sort of financial responsibility, money psychology in general, sustainability for the planet, all of these things are very front of mind for me as a person. And also just on like an individual level with just working in the film industry, parenting, trying to keep up on all of it and trying to do my Dharma path and really get serious about that. I feel that this was like just uncomfortable enough, just enough of a thread to pull to get to really like worthwhile investigations of the conditioning of this being.
Mhm,
um, that were I found as we were doing the work that that was really opening up areas of freedom for me. And it dovetails really well for me into the work that I've been doing in my own retreats with expressive art, visual art. So I was just finding that folks in my family retreat and even in my natural mind retreats have really connected with the art exercises,
mhm,
digging into their own sort of karmic formations through the nonverbal.
mhm,
So when I got to like the juicy, uncomfortable bits in this work with you, and that was sort of overlapping with learning about how powerful symbolism and art can be in meditation retreats, I just thought, like, wow, this is fascinating, interesting work to do at this time
mhm.
for me. And I'd like to share it. Yeah.
Yeah, that was one thing that attracted me to working with you is because money is such a taboo. So it can be quite, there's a lot of stories of betrayal and so forth in people's lives around money. So I've had a tendency over the years to start using art and more creative art expressions in order to bring people into contact and to work through some of those stories. So I'm really you're bringing the sort of right brain side into the course in August, the art, and then we're going to be doing a lot of art and costume making around archetypes, and there's a lot of ritual and imaging happening. So how does that open up the money journey in ways that words or spreadsheets might not?
Hmm. I was kind of thinking about the metaphor of you get much farther, much faster if you walk than if you hop on one foot.
Mhm,
And so, you know, to overwork that metaphor a little bit, we could say that, you know, in your Dharma practice, if you're just using your analytical sort of verbal storytelling to access your patterns, it's a little bit like hopping on one foot. You're really just using some of the functions that your being has that you can bring to this exploration. And first of all, that doesn't work so great for some people, depending on what kind of conditioning and abilities they have. But also for anybody, I've I've found that you get much more traction working on stuff if you alternate between, verbal analytical intelligence, storytelling, your life story, and then, your senses being grounded in play, creativity, the visual, the tactile movement. Um, you can kind of look at this from so many different perspectives. I mean, IFS psychotherapy does a great job of saying, well, different parts talk in different ways and they have different things to say about where you're stuck. Or you could do life right brain, left brain and say, well, I can think about what it might feel like to feel abundance financially, but I can access that feeling completely different way if I like trace my body and fill the whole thing in with gold leaf or dye a shawl and wrap myself in it. There's different ways of kind of getting at things. And I think like I grew up with Tibetan Buddhism and Western mysteries, so um, it comes quite naturally to me to work with like props, the dagger or the skull cup or the rosary, and to really like dig into the kind of subconscious, tactile, embodied sort of knowings that come from asking questions in that way instead of just asking questions with words. Um, yeah, so maybe I got
Speaking
off track there, but does that answer your question?
it was perfect. I was
Okay.
just thinking of speaking of Western mysteries and Tibetan Buddhism, we will be using archetypes, right? So we will be uh, this is work that I bring in from a woman called Deborah Price. She created these 8 money archetypes. So we'll be acting them out. But what are you going to be doing with the archetypes in terms of art and costume design and stuff like that?
So I've noticed over the years that sometimes change my plan mid-retreat depending on who's there and what's really juicy for them. But plan so far is to do some masks, some fabric dyeing, some art, the gold leaf that I mentioned. I have tons of that and it's so fun. A little bit of mandala and sort of schematic mapping of psychology. Yeah, those are the ideas that I have so far.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, where there's 8 archetypes, and 4 of them are the ones that you want to have in your money life, and 4 of them are ones that you just want to keep an eye out on because they have a lot of negative tendencies, and so it's just a really cool way of bringing in the different ways to be with money in the form of archetypes. So people get very tense around money and get very guarded and very defended. So archetypes is just a lovely way from based on the Western mysteries, right? To bring some to help people to let down some of those defense mechanisms, right, around money. Yeah,
Totally. There's sort of like a theatricality and a playfulness and a non-clinging about the archetypes that I found really lovely when we were talking about them before. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how that goes with the group. I think it would be really, really powerful.
yeah, that'd be nice.
Yeah.
So it's the 4 main ones are the warrior archetype, and you always want to have the warrior archetype in the car, driving your financial life, and then the magician, which is that part of you that represents your personal vision, or always sort of looking at your warrior-like activities, making sure that it's in line with where you want to go. So that's just a little insight into some of the archetypes we'll be using.
As somebody who's like studied some Tibetan deities and also like um, some of these Tibetan archetypes like the hungry ghosts or the titans or on the Western mystery side, the tarot cards, or the like Greek myths and things. I found a lot of resonances there with these archetypes.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's really cool.
Okay, let's see. Oh yeah, so I wanted to ask you, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Um, so as Buddhist practitioners, we've been working a lot with kind of identifying the flavors of different types of imbalances in our being, right? So um, translated as they were by Christian monks into sort of archaic Christian words. We've got like greed, hatred, and delusion, or sort of craving, aversion, and confusion, or however you want to say
Mm.
it. And I wanted to ask you how that works with this work, and whether there's a sense of sort of, if you pull this money conditioning thread, do you get to that type of material?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. And absolutely, like I said previously, like money is it's a mirror, it's a reflection, it's a projection. A lot of people project a lot of their suffering onto money, actually. And so when you look at how you spend or how you receive money or how you give, look at your giving, look at your receiving, looking at your offering, looking at your taking, you can get a real excellent printout of your relationship, say, to generosity, or where you are in your relationship to giving. Is there a sense of, or a holding back, and what is that holding back? Is there a fear of not having enough, or is there fear of being betrayed again, or is there a fear of loss of independence? It really, when you keep on peeling down the levels, it goes down to the four ego fears, the fear of annihilation, the fear of going crazy, the fear of abandonment, and the fear of, and I always forget the last one, but it goes back to those ego states of fear. So basically, when you are doing your money biography, or when you are actually working through some of the psychological and emotional and behavioral aspects of money, you actually come face to face with your greed states. You come face to face with your hate states, and even delusion. Because you may be have a mom that's very tight and controlling with money, and you then may have a dad that uh, was very loose with money. So that kind of conditioning will cause a lot of confusion in the child, and you will carry that into adulthood, right? And then when you're talking about money, you'll get this kind of glaze, or just feel like it's too much, or you'll sort of get a sense of overwhelm, right? So what I just really love about money, it's very tangible. Like you can sit in a meditation cushion and you can have these great insights and great realizations, and that's wonderful. But how do you take that off the cushion into the world? And so money you need, it's right in front of your face, so you can apply a lot of the Dharma learnings through your relationship with money on an everyday basis, because it's so tangible and so there, and you need it and you can't avoid it, and you can't put your head in the sand about it. And then, as you leave the states of scarcity and enter more into, then you can start looking at truly being generous, right? And then you can start looking at deepening your understanding of the wisdom of discernment, right? Which is how you get really good at being generous. And then you can do lots of great, wonderful little challenges to extend. You can find out where your growth edge is around generosity, and then you can sort of create challenges for yourself, like decide to just buy somebody a coffee that you don't know, or it can be fun. You can have really great fun thinking of challenges to break that growth edge. Um, yeah, so I think, does that answer your question?
It does. I was just thinking of something, it's slight tangent, but maybe I could throw it in. Thinking about sort of the this kind of, as somebody who grew up around Buddhism, there's sort of this romantic notion of the bhikkhu and the bhikkhuni, the early sort of Buddhist call to like leave everything behind and just wander and beg. And I was thinking before our call today, like just how sort of romantic and unachievable that seems, and how it's just such a different time now. And I have not come across any wise, enlightened teacher who looks at me, a single working mom, and says, what you need to do is go be homeless in urban Canada, and that's going to be your quickest path to awakening. Forget about your dependence, forget about nutrition, forget about, just go with, beg for food. I mean, um, what am I trying to say? There's this lovely kind of imaginary notion that we could let go of our clinging and patterns by just letting go of the entire edifice, but that it doesn't really feel possible in this day and age.
Hmm.
Um, and yet these formations are there. And so it's kind of like we need to address them while in the system, you know?
Yeah, thanks, Lisa. That's a it's a very interesting question. I remember I wanted to go on a 3-year retreat, and Capel said better 3 months because the world is changing so much that
Mm,
it would take a very long time to reintegrate, and so I Clear Sky, we've been tending to just do month retreats every year if you can, or 2 weeks a couple of times a year, and sort of dip in and dip out. Um, you know, but things are so fast and so changing all the time, and we're different consciousnesses than we were all those many years ago. That things happen for us faster, and I think the 21st awakening is very different to a 19th century awakening. It's very different to a 16th century. So it's like you said, it's a very different world. So I think it's important to carve out time in a year to do meditation retreat and attend teachings and have a teacher and be involved with community. Again, I'm very much into the integral way of manifesting in life. So, having that sort of holistic container where, you're learning about the teachings, you're doing your issues around money, sex, and power. You've got a teacher that you're working and learning with. You have a community that can call you on your blind spots, but also, because you can easily spiritually bypass around money, sex, and power and just be that good meditator. But so it's like a container. What's your supportive womb in your life in order to keep non-clinging awareness and awakening in the forefront, right? And the community is very much a big element in today's, because we're talking about group awakenings now and group guru and all of that, right? So and I know at Clear Sky we've done a lot of work as a community around money and power as a group, right? And helping each other. How do we manifest becoming an ever awakening, more effective bodhisattva in the world, right? And
mm.
so, and then how do you use motherhood as a form of awakening? How do you use your career as a product designer as awakening rather than going to the cave, doing all that work and coming out? It doesn't seem for us to be working that way. It's more about how do we take an integral or an integrative approach to life now and awaken through that way, using everything as awakening, really. Does that answer your question? That's just my view, but open.
Yeah, totally.
Hey.
Totally. It's like you have to see the empty nature of it while you're in it instead of like removing yourself from the money system, realizing emptiness, and then trying to somehow come back. I mean, I think that maybe that's not possible for some of us, but
Mhm.
um, when you have dependents and folks that depend on you for not just their well-being in the present, but also sort of their you know, ongoing financial stability, these things get much more complex, don't they?
Yeah, they do. They
Yeah.
do. Yeah. But I'm really into how do we actually help each other in community more than ever, because it's just hard to do it alone these days, with
Mhm.
food and basic necessities becoming so more expensive. So, how do we raise our consciousness into a more sharing cooperative model in community is what I'm very interested in. I feel brings a lot of sanity and relief to people, But again, learning to be in community, like even at Clear Sky, it's a learning curve. It's not easy, and just that whole idea of co-sharing a car, for example, brings up so many different debates and emotional tensions, and so we're getting there. We're getting there.
Hands off my car. Yeah, totally. I have a question here about if you could share, do you have any stories that you could share? Because I know you've worked with a lot of clients one-on-one with this, and with groups also. So I was wondering if there was anything you could say about someone who kind of, is there anybody who came in to kind of work on their money stuff and ended up with sort of some unexpected sort of freedoms or liberations or progress in other areas.
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, one person comes to mind. She came in, she was working for a fiduciary firm, and she was very interested in caring for other people's money. And she had a, strong spiritual practice, and um, she was in working for somebody else, and she felt like her boss was being unfair to her. That she brought in all the money and all the clients, and she wanted to have a raise, and she wanted to become higher up in the business, and that the boss was stopping her. So it was kind of the bad boss syndrome, and she felt very stuck. And so when we worked on her money issues, and she was very obsessive. She was always looking at her bank account. She every day, even though it wouldn't change, there was an obsession there to keep looking at it. And she had read every single money book, and she knew everything about everything to do with money. And so when we worked together, the reason it wasn't her that her boss was a bad person at all. Her boss was just running a small business and wasn't able to help this person or give her what she wanted because the business wasn't capable of doing that. But what was really going on is that she had an entrepreneurial father that, when she was growing up, would go from living in a nice house to living in a shelter to living in a nice house. So they would have these huge boom and bust because he was a serial entrepreneur. And she
Mm.
had wonderful entrepreneurial qualities as well, but she was terrified that if she embraced them, that she would go through the same cycle as her father. And her father's now in his 70s or whatever, and again doesn't have a lot of money to support him in his old age. So she was absolutely terrified of that. So when she started to look at some of those fears and look through her relationship with money and her obsession with money, it led to her not her real dream was to set up her own fiduciary firm and to run her business from a place of heart and do things differently. Very, very talented young woman, really, really amazing. And so when she recognized that she was stopping herself from doing that because she was terrified of becoming her father, and going from lots of money to no money to not being able to retain the money.
Mhm.
So when she worked through that, she then set up her own fiduciary firm. It's going well. She's broke through that ceiling that she had made with herself because of her father's behaviors around money, and she's doing well. She's doing well. That's just one nice story that comes to mind.
Lovely. Good for her.
Yeah, good for her.
Yeah. Um,
So, can I ask you a question? Because you've been
sure.
asking me.
Yes. Okay.
So, this is about collaboration, friendship, and Dharma across lineages. So, this collaboration between you and me is special, right? It bridges two Dharma centers, two life paths, and two approaches to transformation. So, why does that kind of cross lineage, pure base work matter to you in this day and age?
Mm. Yeah, I mean, gosh, it's so important to collaborate with people who are slightly different from you and have like, you know, slightly different conditioning. But then on the other hand, I also like we can't just all be silos. And I think that increasingly culturally we're getting very isolated and siloed and everybody's their own little expert and that's lovely in some ways, but I think that building bridges between people is like extremely important and um but also like just on a basic personal level. Maybe some people on the call kind of know this already, but I grew up in this lineage and this feels like extended family to me, and that's like extremely important and meaningful for me. So like the Namjo lineage, I've done long retreats in like different Namjo lineage centers around the world and always found that there was just this sense of like resonance and alignment and yet a slightly different take, opening up to slightly different questions that I hadn't thought of or a slightly different emphasis on practice. So like for example, I have always found that folks from Clear Sky have like this really lovely fearlessness around tackling taboos and working in the real world, this sort of like working with money, for example. And I really love that about your sort of what is it, like your star in this galaxy, right? So like we're all in it together, but there's like different flavors from different sort of clusters of practitioners.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, I think it's extremely healthy to like cross-pollinate that type of thing.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. Thank you.
Do a collaborative retreat at the Dharma Center.
hmm Can you say that last sentence again? Because I didn't hear it. It kind of skipped.
I just said, what about you? Why do you want to do a collaborative retreat at the Dharma Center?
Yeah. Well, I love the Namja lineage. I love the exploration of the Namja lineage. I would love it to get stronger in the future, to thrive. And I know the lineage centers in our Namja lineage center, each center around the world have been gathering together to bring Namgyal Rinpoche's books online as an ebook, and that's been a really great collaboration between all of our centers around the world. So I get very excited about that. Get very excited about because I feel like the future is all about generosity, reciprocity, and collaboration among the lineage in order to make it stronger and be there for the next generation. So I want to make those, I guess, like a mycelium mushroom. I want to make the threads of a mycelium mushroom really strong because of what's coming up in the next few decades. And we've got quite a few young people working with us here at Clear Sky, and so um, yeah, just the need to actually really work together as a team, the need to really work well and communicate well, to create structures so that the teachings can be found by the future generation is just very precious to me, right? Um, because it's worked so much beautifully in my life. So, the more collaboration is just so amazing when you do it well. Like you and me, we've been working, I guess, about a year and a half together, and so I've been very touched by our collaboration, and I was really excited that you're representing the DCC, and I hope that we have more of this kind of thing going forward.
Yeah, totally.
And
Um, oh, sorry, I just got a pop up there. Go ahead.
so if someone listening here feels like this is too deep with it for me, or I'm not good with money, what would you say to them? Like, yeah, what would you say to them? Because
Yeah, I think that you sort of have to have a nose for where your cutting edges when you're choosing like which work you want to do next in your Dharma sort of path. And for me, I could just kind of smell it. I was like, there's obstacles here, there's lack of clarity here, there's like just a tiny little sort of hint of aversion, but there's like enormous curiosity. And like for me, when I came on this up onto this work, I was like, okay, well, that has the smell of a good place to dig for like liberation, you know? There's conditioning, there's heavy conditioning here. Um, for me, I had found that I had done some holistic clearing meditation. And I don't know if people on the call here have worked with that. Maybe some, I think some of you have. And it was this money work for me was a lack, actually. There was just a lack of solid competence around this subject. And I think that that's a really great kind of zone to go after if you have that kind of zone in your being. So certainly not for me to say who wants to work on this type of thing, but I think that when you smell it, you smell it, you know, like if you can tell that there's like you have the capacity right now and you can tell that there's some friction there and you have kind of like spontaneously arising sort of curiosity about the topic and you have um, good motivation. So this is like, I think these are all the components of choosing a practice, right? Like, does it really feel like it's motivated for the sake of all beings, for the well-being of the planet, for becoming a more awakened person for others, you know? And yeah, I would say if those factors are there, then I got a lot out of this work.
Hmm. And you know, when you come in, you're sort of at a certain stage of development around money, and it's an ongoing process, right? It's not something like you work with money and then that's it. It keeps on evolving. So when you started to where you are now, what's those little small but significant shifts that have happened for you?
The first the big one for me was had a couple of them. One was realizing that I had sort of made this trade in my life from financial poverty to time poverty. Um, and so I had started as kind of like a starving artist meditator, and I had lots of time for retreats, but no resources, and kind of was like floating along and had like incredible luck with getting sponsored. Well, I was just very well supported by our incredible community and had opportunities to retreat. And but then when the rubber started to hit the road and I needed to live in the world, I kind of just subconsciously made this trade like, oh, time is money. I need money, so I'm going to trade all my time. And then I kind of started really coming up against, you know, having enough resources but having no time, and not having time for retreats, not having time for parenting the way that I would like to. Um, and I think what was fascinating for me was kind of zooming out to sort of 10,000 feet and looking at that and being like, what kind of energetic problem is this? You know, how is this? Where's their clinging? Where's their ignorance? You know, where am I being a classic dull type about this? And I don't want to make this like a testimonial kind of story, but we worked together, and I really made some very long-term decisions about changing my career path, to open up more time for Dharma and to align the way that I make money a little bit closer to um, something sustainable.
Hmm. Nice. So you're sort of lining up your money with your personal vision, or what feels more middle way for you.
Yeah, and certainly, I mean, to be fully transparent, it's very much a work in progress for me. Just like you said, it's not like you get the diploma and like you're fixed, you know.
Yeah.
Anybody here knows that working on your internal psychological obstacles is it's a lifetime or
Yeah.
multi-lifetime uh project, right? But we're trying to just get those glimpses of freedom, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost like sometimes they take 20 years for certain patterns to drop.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No wonder patience is part of the path. Yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
great. Well, I'm not sure we have any other questions. Maybe we should open it up to the room and see if anybody would like to ask a question. That would be wonderful. So if you are brave enough, you can open your mic, and if you're a little bit more shy, you could put it in the chat.
And
Yeah.
meanwhile, I'll just mention there's some stuff in the chat. We have our email addresses, a link to the retreat. And if you would be so kind as to put your email address or contact information in there, then we can send you updates if you want them.
I have something to say.
Yeah, please.
That
Yes.
sounds like Heather. Is that Heather?
Yeah, it's Heather.
Oh, hi, Heather.
Hi. Hi, Lisa. Um, I've very much enjoyed your conversation together, and I've taken some notes, and I'm unable to attend your retreat at the Dharma Center, but I love the notion of the collaborative element that's coming to play into play between the two centers. And I was particularly taken by, Lisa, your comment about traditionally the notion of doing your practice, that you leave the city, you leave the town, you leave your connections, and you go off into a cave or into a monastic setting. And I'm not the monastic setting is certainly very important. Doing retreat work, I'm not pointing to that. It's just that I was raised with this notion that, you take robes and you find your way with the alms bowl. And that's been quite a curve of a learning curve for me, to be able to live in the world, do my practice in the world and in retreat, and to move beyond that somewhat confining traditional notion of receiving dana. And I think that living in the world ex- allows the community to grow, and it also gives you a station to understand more deeply how to give, and what happens when you give, and the letting go when you give, and to receive as well. And that dynamic in the world is so vital. And so I'm stimulated by your conversation here, and I shall go and do some reflection on my own attitudes towards money. My cash flow is, I'm not complaining about it, but as you both point out, it's a learning. It's an adventure in learning, and it's not a graduation day, and you've got it all figured out. But it has to do with negotiation from the heart, I think. Thank you.
Yeah, well said. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It's funny, what comes up for me is we created money as a community in order to make it easier for us. And the spiritual world, it tends to project onto money as being somehow evil on some level when you look down through the layers, and that if I embrace the money thing, that somehow it's going to taint my spirituality or my
Yeah.
art project or whatever. And so when a group of spiritual practitioners get together and do their money work together, it's extremely powerful, because spiritual explorers tend not to accumulate stuff. They're not really interested in general. I'm really making a vast generalization here, but not into accumulating things. It's all about the mindset. It's all about the view. So
Mm-hmm,
together
mm-hmm.
community to disentangle those fixed views that particular this group of people have is a delightful process. So if you can do it in community, I would recommend that.
Do you can you extrapolate a little more on that? Because when you say it's a delightful process, I would think there's a certain amount of pain that arises as
Yeah.
you find your way together.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe delightful was it's a delightful process. It's a delightful result.
Okay, all right.
Okay. But yes, the process is a little sticky, and
Yeah, no doubt.
it's facing being uncomfortable, being uncomfortable with the uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
But
mm-hmm.
I do find people get very intimate very quickly when there's the right space holding the group, right? It's very important that the facilitation and the group holders and space holders are very experienced for this,
Uh-huh,
right? That's almost
uh-huh.
as important as the people doing the work.
Right. Interesting.
Just as you say that, Karen, I'm kind of thinking about the phrase, like, when you go to a medical practitioner, it's like, show me where it hurts. Oh, it hurts here. Oh, that's your kidney. Sometimes I think in the context of our spiritual development, we're sort of afraid to show up and say it hurts in my money.
Mhm.
Uh,
Mhm.
but there can be so much sort of suffering stashed there.
Right? Right.
And so, you know, yeah, when you say, oh, it hurts here, and then somebody pushes on that, like that doesn't necessarily feel delightful, but there's something very real and very kind of healing to just actually look at where the suffering is, you know, and
Hmm.
to look at it with somebody else and to say, have somebody else say, oh, it hurts there,
Hmm.
you know, oh, it hurts in your over leveraging your competence to try so hard to make up for this fear that you have or whatever, you know, it's kind of maybe a little bit more in the psychotherapy realm than the traditional meditation realm, but it does feel good actually to say it hurts here and to have somebody else kind of, you know, be in that with you.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And it's great because if you're a spiritual explorer, then then you've done a lot of meditation. Then when you do actually turn your mind to money, you've got all the great qualities of a meditative state to really focus on it and dissolve the fixed views quite quickly. You know, that's what I find.
Totally. Compassion, loving kindness, sympathetic joy, and equanimity, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Is there any other questions out there, or comments, or insights?
Hi, Karen.
Hi.
Hi, Lisa. Hi. Hi. Thanks for the conversation. It's really wonderful to be here with you and everybody. Um, Unfortunately, I will not be at the Dharma Center at the beginning of August for the little retreat that you're offering. But I have attended the course with you before, Karen, a couple of years ago now, and I have teamed up with Lisa through various online courses too, and I've really enjoyed your creative approach. And I'm just curious as to whether there will be an online um, version of mixing the two together for those of us that can't get to the Dharma Center anytime soon.
Well, we never thought about that, but why not?
That's a great question. Why didn't we think about that?
Yes. Thank you for that. Yeah, it's a great idea.
Hey, Susan.
We'll be in touch, Sue.
If you put your email in the chat, we'll think about that and get back to you. The Dharma Center does sometimes have a bit of an online component when they offer retreats, and we haven't really talked to the Dharma Center about that, but we could look into it for sure. Yeah.
Well, I think we have a few minutes left.
I have a question.
Great.
It's Karen Meredith speaking. Thank you so much, both of you. It's not so much a question, but there's question behind it. I guess a little bit of preamble is what really grabbed me was when you were mentioning those four deep fears, because the money, money represents what it's like our support, right? And it's so like connected to these early patterns, and those fears, they're really real, and they're what we don't want to know about. And we have all this scrambling around, like you said, it's like, I need to get this, or I need to push this away. And it's like, so this is a can of worms. It's like the whole truth, right? It takes us, it's an angle into looking at these, and it's really hard. And I just wondered if you have any more like love and abandonment, or abandonment, love, annihilation, all those things that you were mentioning. It's so tied in. But I guess that's what we'll explore a bit. And I am going to try to attend the course because I recognize the difficulties that I've never resolved in all the years. Well, I recognize that they're there. But I haven't been able, I've scrambled around and figured out a way to deal with the money, like Lisa's description, oh, you're rich in time and then, but not in money. You're rich in money, not in time. And then, but what's going on underneath it all, I also think a lot about, think about my memories anyway of Namdal Rinpoche and how money just seemed to flow to him and flow through him. And it was like, it was always like the best times of childhood were like with Rinpoche, right? Like, it's like, oh, we're going on this trip and you can do it too, right? And somehow it was just like an amazing thing to see and experience and be in that grace wave, like of money flowed, right? And it didn't stop anywhere and it didn't really exist anywhere, but it somehow what you needed to do or wanted to do or your unfoldment was supported. So anyway, I guess my question really is there any more tidbits about coming into contact with those hard things that you don't really like you're getting choked up right over it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, the course that you'll come to, I'm really happy to hear that you'll be coming. We're really going to focus on creating a womb-like container, right? So, because these things can only really come up to face when you create that safety or when you create that womb, right? That container. I think Namjal Rinpoche says it in his book, Karma, Womb and Transcendence, that just like a baby needs a womb to thrive, an adult needs a similar womb-like setting in order to deal with some of this, the deeper taboos. I think there's a beautiful phrase in Karma, Womb and Transcendence that I have read recently, and so we're very much focused on that, and then of course we're going to be doing a lot of narrative therapy and changing the stories that you have, and it's going to be a lot of a mixture of having playfulness with reflection with it's going to be set up in a way that you'll be able to really be able to face some of those things you don't want to face, right? And that's why we're bringing in the art and we're bringing in the dance and we're bringing in the archetypes. Especially the archetypes will be a great way of slowly opening the gate and going into the weed garden, right? And then be able to sort of start plucking the weeds out, right? But it's a beginning. It's a beginning in that journey. And the great thing, Karen, I do want to say is that usually people who end up doing this work have done an awful lot of work in other parts of their lives. So it's usually the money thing is the last great big little great big is the last taboo that they need to focus on. So this I've noticed this time and time again. So your other work will support you in looking at some of this yucky stuff you don't want to look at. So I just want to say that too. It won't be as bad as you think because of all your meditative work, right? And what me and Lisa are doing is just really providing that beautiful womb for you. Did you have anything to add, Lisa? Does that help, Karen?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, yeah, it's great. It's great. Yeah, thank you.
No big things to add, but I just was thinking of the alchemical container when you were talking about the womb and the safe container. Because in my psychotherapy training that I did at the Living Institute, we used to talk about alchemy and how important the container is for that type of work. And the other sort of associative piece that I have brewing in the background is how, at least for this being, working with archetypes helps take it a little bit out of the personal into the pattern recognition. And the beautiful thing about the archetypes is they're transpersonal, right? So you can kind of be like, okay, well, this is a formation, this is a pattern, this is a flavor. Is some of this at play in my being? And whereas it's like, what am I trying to say? It's sort of a safe way to work with a pattern of becoming that is a little bit less juicy and bloody in your own like wound, and a little bit more about a pattern of conditioning, and you can play with it. You can have it inside and outside. Is this part of how I am? Is this not part of how I am? Is this part of how somebody I know is? There's sort of can be like a non-clinging play with it, I think. That I personally like. I like that about working with archetypes. Yeah.
Just to add to what Lisa was saying, in the money archetypes, you have the warrior that you want in the front seat of the car. I use a car analogy to get that idea of what a healthy relationship with money looks like. And so you have the warrior in the front seat, and then you have the magician in the passenger seat. And so the magician is just looking at the flow of money. I was thinking of Rinpoche when you were talking. When you were talking about Rinpoche, Karen, I was thinking of this, and the magician is just watching that the flow of money is heading in the right direction. It's heading away from greed and fear and towards love, and it's that part of you that's looking to find where the blood clots are, so that you can let go or let go of the blood clots, so that the money can continue to flow. And so that's that part of you. And then your warrior is that part of you that's always active and paying attention to the cash flow and implementing the personal vision and implementing the budget and so forth. And so what I've noticed over the years is recently there was a sort of conference that I wanted to go with my teacher, Catherine Sensei, and I didn't really have that much money to go, but I decided to trust the universe and just pay for all this money. But at the same time, I did set it up that I would have certain courses running afterwards. So it's like that same thing as trust in the universe and tie up your camel, so you can play with that, right? So I've done that quite a number of times where I have trusted and felt like this was very much in line with my dharma and my vision, and I'm going to just empty out my bank account, but have sort of a plan in mind. And what happens usually is that the money comes, right? But I've been really working with just taking those chances. But I also have a developed warrior now around money. Not warrior, but warrior. So anyway, it's an interesting parts to play with in yourself.
Well, my son Ronan has just arrived to tell me that it's probably time to go.
So what?
We're in a Zoom.
When I'm trying to figure out where to look to actually look at the camera. Am I looking right now?
The light there. Yes, you are.
Okay.
Give me 5 minutes, okay, honey?
Okay.
Great. Well, do we have any last words, Lisa?
Well, I'm really looking forward to this collaboration. And I really enjoyed having a chat with you in this format. I hope it was useful to folks.
Yeah.
And may it be for the benefit of all beings.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Lisa.
You're welcome, Heather.
Thank you, everybody in the Dharma Center, for sponsoring this.
Yes.